what sectors do you think AI could immediately improve as we are in Nigeria?
People are really deploying it. Even in health sector, they are beginning to use more of telemedicine, remote sensing, and the like. In the last 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT, things haven't been the same. We all are kind of scrambling to develop policies to guide both the faculty and learners on the appropriate use of it. The more we deploy AI, the more we need to have our ears wide open and eyes to ensure that it's not doing some other unintended harm.
So if you were to advise the policymaker with regards to AI regulation, what do you think is the most important and practical step that Africa can take to close its AI regulation gap or to stop us from lagging behind? You're welcome to the CSEA podcast. Today we are joined by Dr. Helen Titilola Olojede. You're welcome, Dr. Titilola.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Please, can you give us a little bit of an introduction about you and your work?
Okay, so I'm Titilola Olojede. My affiliation is with the National Open University of Nigeria. I head the Department of Philosophy, and my research area and competence is in ethics, specifically ethics of artificial intelligence and bioethics. So my research cuts across ethics, philosophy, gender, and African philosophy. Also a research fellow with the Institute for Global Value Inquiry, and I have published works in peer-reviewed journals on ethics of AI and the likes, and I was opportune to be part of the draft committee on Nigeria's national AI strategy, and I chair the AI ethics and social impact subgroup. And I think that does it.
That's a very deep and robust list of things you've done on artificial intelligence. So with regards to this conversation, I can say we're in good hands.
Yeah, I want to believe so, hopefully.
All right, so we'll be starting with the first question. So a lot of conversation has already been had as regards to the benefits of AI, how it can help people with increased work productivity, increased profits, even for businesses. And what an amazing tool it is what seems to be the general conversation that's being had. But little conversation is being had about the risks of these technologies that we have. So these risks can be human rights risks, they can be climate change risks even. I wanted to ask, what does AI regulation mean to Dr. Titilola?
Okay, it means putting guardrails, having mechanisms in place to ensure that the adoption and deployment of AI in whatever setting in the society, in organizations, in academic institutions and beyond, that they help to harness the goods in it while mitigating some of these risks. And regulations could come in various ways, and it could be intergovernmental, regional, it could be institutional, it could also be ethical policy in terms of ethics and policies. Right. And we've had quite a number of them in place since the proliferation of AI, so to speak. Yeah.
When you mentioned the proliferation of AI, it even feeds into the next question I'm going to ask. As to we've seen, the reason for the need for the regulation of AI is because of how widely adopted it is, in businesses, in education, in virtually every sector. So I wanted to even start with asking, what sectors do you think AI could, immediately improve as we are in Nigeria?
That's a very good question. Let me start by saying that AI is not a panacea for improvement, for challenges, for problems and the likes. Yeah. The more we deploy AI, the more we need to have our ears wide open and eyes to ensure that is not doing some other unintended harm. But that said, in the immediate is impacting virtually all the sectors. I come from the educational background, and I know that in the last 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT, things haven't been the same. We all are kind of scrambling to develop policies to guide both the faculty and learners on the appropriate use of it. So that's one, education. In the service industry, I know that there is this service-wise GPT, I think deployed by some ministry in Nigeria to I've interacted with it a couple of times. You could ask a question relating to policy, governmental policy and all. So that is there. There is also this budget it. It's an AI-powered tool that helps to simplify budgetary allocation of government to an average Nigeria. There is also the Bonds, which is a platform that helps to manage finances. It's a service delivery platform. There's also this awari.com. It's a platform that collects, annotates, and validates data. So in the service delivery, they are deploying it quite a lot, and I think it's probably also helping them. In the agricultural sector, I'm aware of FarmSpeak. FarmSpeak is an AI-powered tool that helps poultry farmers to manage their day-to-day runnings. There is also Kuzi. Kuzi is also an AI-powered tool that helps. It's embedded with predictive analytics that helps to predict low-cost invasion in the green.
So still within agriculture.
Yes, within agriculture. So people are really deploying it. Even in health sector, they are beginning to use more of telemedicine, remote sensing, and the like. So it has impacted practically all sectors, and we just need to rise to the occasion.
Right. Like you rightly said, AI is, entering into virtually every sector with the examples that you mentioned. So based on that now, the next question I wanted to ask is, why does Africa need to regulate AI? It's in virtually all sectors. So what seems to be the benefits or consequences of regulation? And does it somehow make social inequalities worse?
Oh, good. It's important to regulate AI adoption because technology is not neutral. Technology comes with values, norms of the developers. Also, AI technology is such that it's a technology like no other. There were technologies in the past that were defining of their time, but AI is quite different because it has some agency. It could act on its own. In some circumstance. And it's also because of its epistemic opacity.
What does that mean?
Being able to understand the workings of it. It's not exactly known. So why it's output a certain result and not the other is not exactly known. And that's why the principle of transparency has been put forward a great deal. It's one of the most talked about principles, like top on the list of the principles that have been proposed to guard AI adoption. That's why transparency is top on the list, because if we have a system that is opaque, that operates like a black box, you could only know what goes into it, then you see the result, the exact manner in which it's generated the result is not known.
Choices it makes.
So those two factors make AI to be quite unlike an unusual kind of technology. And that's why it brings about the idea of regulation. And why should we regulate? Because first, we need to be able to safeguard human dignity, protect rights, and also safety of people. Okay. For example, I was once a victim of, I was taking an exam and I was automatically graded by AI. And of course, I failed. Several times I did it. I think talking now from the perspective of a lecturer, students have a right to choose how they want to be graded and whether they are being graded by AI. So that borders on rights, Then in another way, maybe I'm chatting, I'm on a website and I'm chatting with a bot. I have a right to know. So you don't disguise bot to me as a human. So in some other settings, the issue of rights can even get more insidious. When we talk about facial recognitions, facial recognitions have been known to be biased against people of color and even blacks. So should I be put through that? So in terms of rights, that's one. In terms of human dignity as well, which is intricately linked with the idea of human rights, and of course safety. And I love the fact that at the beginning you said that there are areas of AI that are hardly discussed, the environmental impact of it, how much water data centers are consuming to cool it. So it's very important to regulate it in those areas. Another area is in the area of bias, which I touched on when I allude there to facial recognition. Biases against women because of lack of representative data, biases against people living with disabilities, biases against those who were not part of those who developed the algorithm, and the developers, their data wasn't representative enough. So those are some ideas that we could look at. Then beyond that, there is also the idea of privacy, security, and data governance. As persons in the global south, we tend to be at some disadvantage because we are consuming the technology
instead of making
it. And so because data as well has become so invaluable, there is this extractivism going on, which has been tagged technological colonialism or digital colonialism. So as a continent, as a people, we also need to be able to safeguard group privacy, and be cautious and be careful on the kind of projects or even MOUs we sign, because many a times nothing is free in Freetown, we say it. So they are now usually altruistic. There are gains and benefits.
They can disguise.
They can disguise. So it's best for us to strive at equitable partnership rather than exploitative or, the supposed strategic, and people are not coming to the table with open hands.
Right. So what you mentioned about, our need to protect ourselves, even in that need to protect ourselves, Africa is usually termed as lagging behind. What does this mean? What does this lagging behind mean in practice when we are compared to maybe the EU, the US, and China in terms of regulation, in terms of AI regulation?
I rather think that Africa lags behind in terms of AI readiness and not in terms of regulation. At my last count, AU has up to 23 regulations pertaining to digital governance. So the readiness of it, and the truth is that the world would not wait for us. Of course, we have infrastructural deficits and the likes, but then we need to make do with what we have, and as slow as it could be, try to tag along. So it's in terms of AI readiness, and I also think that countries are trying to do some leapfrog in this regard, because I think at the last count, up to 15 African countries have developed their national AI strategy, which is a way of, being ready. So your strategy tells the world, it tells your people that this is how, as a government, these are my top priorities. These are the areas I'm going to focus I would like to deploy AI, and these are the ways I'm going to safeguard it. Okay, so we have policies, but we need implementation, which is much more fundamental. Readiness, we need to be more ready and ensure that even those strategies we're developing, they are not just developed to tick a box, but that they are homegrown, they are context dependent, they are not copy and paste, and they are implemented.
Right. So there's an interesting thing you mentioned in your answer. You said we lack infrastructure, and that feeds into the next question, right? So how does infrastructural gap, like unreliable internet, electricity, how does that shape what AI regulation can look like in Africa or even in Nigeria?
Okay, regulation again and infrastructure. I'll cite concrete examples. Internet sometimes might not be good. Okay, so because of the work I do, I have different networks, so that if one doesn't work, another will work. I've declined to be in a panel session at the last minute because there wasn't electricity, and I was just hoping they were going to bring it, and they never brought it. And I was like, no, I wouldn't want to be in a global audience and I'm in the dark. So
that is very important.
I just respected myself. I said, no, you're not going to do this, and this won't happen again. So infrastructure is key, because it's when you have the right resources that you can participate. So if you don't have, you can't. So as we do regulations and the likes, and as we prepare, as we get ourselves ready, it's important to also ensure that some of these resources, basic resources, as a matter of fact, they are provided. And I think there is a particular ministry here in Nigeria that is doing some works in that area, going to interior, empowering the young, giving them computer and digital skills, so as to, as much as possible, mitigate the widening, of the gap. Digital divide. Try to bridge the gap. Okay, but the world is not going to wait for us. We just need to take the bull by the horn. And as individuals, I haven't even said the cost of data, because it has kind of doubled, if not tripled, in the last 2 to 3 years. And that's problem in itself. And there
especially
are some,
for us in Africa.
Exactly, for us in Africa. I was in a meeting on Saturday, and it's a global meeting, and they were like, "Oh, for people in the global south, how can we help?" and the likes. And I'm like, I don't know how you can help, but I know that when I'm on Zoom, I consume a lot more data than any other place.
Yeah.
So talking about the cost itself
is
another one.
And
connecting to the internet. Yeah. Now, connecting to the internet that may not be reliable. You might just be cut off. Or you have the internet, but you don't have power. So it's a complex problem. It's a complex problem, but we can't rest on our oars. We just need to forge ahead and, as much as possible, do what is within our capacity to catch up.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So the next question would be, with regards to what's happening on the global stage. So there seems to be a divide on how countries regulate AI, right? It seems like the US is taking a more innovation-heavy approach, and the EU, continents within the European Union are taking a more cautious regulatory approach. So with regards to this, how do you think African countries, with the current, infrastructure or where we are, can strike a balance between fostering innovation and protecting citizens, especially with digital rights framework still being, at its nascent stage?
It's a very profound question. I love it. Let me begin by saying that regulations, when I think about regulation, I think of it in terms of putting ethical guardrails in place and policies and the likes. Regulations don't stifle innovation.
Okay, that's a new take.
Innovation rather needs regulation for innovation to be safe, responsible, and sustainable. So people tend to think that when you're putting regulation, there is this term they will say over-regulation.
Yeah, you're killing innovation.
Aristotle tells us that virtue lies in the middle, quite all right. But in the way you have framed it, I usually talk about cautious incremental approach to innovation, and not just nose diving into it. Or having a wholesale adoption of it. Okay, so when it comes to Africa, that's what I would say still. We can regulate. Yes, regulation is key. That was where we started from, because if not, rights, dignity, biases, culture, privacy, data
will be falling very easily into all those consequences.
But we should, as much as possible, put human development, human values, human norms. What kind of society do we want to have? What kind of society is wholesome adoption of technology fostering? Is that what we would want? So technology should be at the service of humanity. So as much as possible, when we're trying to strike a balance between innovation and regulation, we should always think human-centric, because after all said and done, it is humans that will be at the receiving end, or to the benefits, or to the otherwise of the human person. That would be my approach.
Okay, so the next question would be that what do you see as the role of regional bodies like the African Union? What role do you see them playing in creating and encouraging the implementation of AI regulation within Africa?
Very, very insightful question too.
Thank you.
And I think it's a bit complex, I must say. Because AU is a regional body, as you said. Countries are sovereign.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be hard for AU to carry sticks and say you have to do
you.
this,
Yeah.
you know. So what I would think is that first, AU maybe they could just maybe a task force, provide some incentives, or even do a bottom-up approach. Let those countries have a buy-in into their policies, AU policies. So when you co-create something, it's easier for you to own it than if it was done for you and they said, come and carry it. I'll be like, who says who? So maybe they need to change the approach. I'm not implying that they haven't been doing that, but it's a mixture of a lot of factors to ensure that. And just as I said earlier, in the AU Continental Agreement Strategy released 2024, implementation, yes, but what is actually the content of that strategy? But more importantly, I think that AU could look at various approaches, and for countries that are already, and I don't think we're doing very badly, because we've seen the rise of countries coming up with their strategies, developing it and the like. So you can just I think maybe you rethink some of the approaches as much as possible, so implement more, and also put the human person at the center, because there is this risk, or there is this tendency to want to think in terms of economic benefits of AI, how you want to harness the economic benefits, while you're not taking cognizance of the other way it could be hampering the human person. So I would think, yes,
human rights.
Yes, human rights and the likes, because I read that document, I reviewed it, and I had lots of questions regarding what our priorities are in that document. Yeah.
Right. I think with regards to implementation, one of the most important things you mentioned is like creating incentives. So even if they have, these regulations or rules that countries should abide by, what are the incentives? Because like you said, countries are sovereign. We cannot be going around chasing them and, mandating them to comply when they have their sovereignty. So bringing this conversation home to Nigeria, we want to discuss how Nigeria, when the, creation of AI, because we have not even started making really advanced growth in artificial intelligence creation. We are much more in the place of adopting what has already been created. So what do you think Nigeria could do to ensure that policy conversations involve not just the people who are at the forefront of technology, that's the big tech firms, but they also include people who are at the receiving ends of these technologies, people who are in the communities, people who even use them, educators, people like that?
Multi-stakeholder engagement.
Exactly.
The draft of the Nigerian's national AI strategy brought this to light very well, because at that gathering, there were many stakeholders from big techs, academics, even Nigerian academics working in AI in diaspora. They brought them, non-profit organization. Right. Practically everybody was represented because I was there.
Right.
So the ministry responsible for that did that very well. They brought in various stakeholders. So it's not like some group of people just sat down and drafted it. No, every sector in the country that you can think of was represented. And it's important we take leave from that and also continue in that line when we're crafting policies or strategies. The end users, it requires intentionality.
Exactly.
We need some deliberateness. It's quite easy to recruit those that are closest to us. But what about those that are far from us, not easily reachable, that you probably don't even have an adequate channel of communication with them? Those are the people that we need to go over and beyond to bring to the table and ensure that their thoughts are captured and you both co-create something. Yeah.
That's amazing. So the last question is a bit like a trivia.
Okay.
So if you were to advise the policymaker with regards to AI regulation, what do you think is the most important and practical step that Africa can take to close its AI regulation gap or to stop us from lagging behind, like we're discussing?
Policy again.
Yeah.
You see, in Nigeria, we don't have a dearth of policy. We have policy on practically everything.
Yeah.
If you go to NITDA sites, you will see lots of them. There are standards, there are procedures, there are policies, numbers of them. Are we implementing them? So I would say first, policies should be homegrown, not cut and pastes.
Right.
You should fit into our context. You don't just sit down somewhere and draft something. Again, I say the way our AI strategy was drafted is quite commendable. Also, when we draft, we should also ensure that we're not drafting for the sake of it and say we have this policy.
And the paper is just out there.
The paper is there gathering dust, or it's on the cloud. Nobody's using it. Do we implement it? Do we hold people to task? Grok on Twitter is being used to perpetuate technology-enhanced violence. We have a policy against that. Has anybody been brought to book? Has anybody been arrested? So it's quite sad, you know. So I don't think we need more policies.
We need action.
Malabo Convention 2023 AU talks about this privacy we had earlier mentioned, group privacy and the likes. Is it being implemented? So I would think that enough of policies, really. The ones we have, I'm sure we can maneuver them to cater to realities, modern day realities or current realities. But can we stop backing and just bite for once?
Yeah.
By the time you bite 1 or 2, 3 people or organizations,
clamp down.
I think all of us will sit up kind of.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's all the questions we have.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on the CC podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the CC podcast. I found this conversation interesting and I hope that you did too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.